God spoke to Pastor John Kilpatrick before the Brownsville Revival, and God said for him to speak into the heavens what God was telling him to speak. And when he did that, it would change the atmosphere. Think about this. Because Pastor Kilpatrick obeyed God, Pensacola, Florida was transformed for being known as the abortion capital to being the revival capital of the world. This is going to so encourage you and understand why it's so important at VFNkb with VFNtv to be able to continue to speak out God's truth around the world. As a matter of fact, check it out. Be sure to subscribe and press alert to get new notifications of new success secrets made available on VFNtv. What happened before revival took place and that prophetic word was given about what God was going to do in Pensacola, Florida, which began to birth Father's Day of 1995 at Brownsville Assembly of God at 3100 West DeSoto Street, Pensacola, Florida, is that God spoke to Pastor John Kilpatrick because at that time some real difficult things were happening in the culture. I mean, abortion clinics were being blown up, doctors were being killed, people said they were doing that in the name of Christianity. Some falls of ministers had taken place and things were looking really bad. Well, God spoke to Pastor John Kilpatrick and told him, if you'll begin to speak into the heavenlies, what I'm telling you to speak, I'll change the atmosphere. And he did that. And what happened? Father's Day 1995 was the beginning of the Young Cho prophecy about God said, I would begin in Pensacola. I would go all the way to the Mississippi, but he'll come back. God's going to come back through the Panhandle again. And that's where the Lord told us to begin to do the very same thing. First, let's go find out what the Lord told Pastor John Kilpatrick to do about brass heavens. When you're praying and all of a sudden it doesn't seem your words going anywhere, the atmosphere has changed, but you can change that atmosphere. And that's what we're doing here at VFNtv. Let's take a look now.
And right before revival broke out, especially about a week or two before revival broke out, you could come in there on Sunday night to pray, and it was like you almost had to whisper, because if you had any volume at all, it was like it was just booming in heaven. That's the way it felt. Derek Prince told me before he died, he came there and spent about a month with his wife from Jerusalem. And he said, Brother John, he said, I've been all over the earth many times. And he said, I've never been a place on the earth that had such an open heaven as Pensacola does. And I remember in 1988, back during the Jim Baker debacle and Jimmy Swaggart debacle, I heard the Lord say to me, he said, the heavens are brassing over from New Orleans this way toward Pensacola. And that's the first time I'd ever heard that phrase. And he said, the heavens are clamoring, they're thickening. And he said, if you'll preach what I give you on television, and if you'll preach what I give you at Brownsville, he said, I'll begin to open the heavens. And at that time, Pensacola was known as the abortion capital of the world. That's where they had all the abortion bombings and abortion killings. Dr. David Gunn was killed by Michael Griffin. The kids that bombed the abortion clinic over there, they all had Bible names. And the Lord said, if you'll preach what I give you, he said, I'll open up the heavens from New Orleans this way. And he said, I will send my spirit. That's all I knew. So I began to preach what he gave me. And the Lord gave me a series on when the heavens are brass, and I actually wrote a book about it. And whenever I began to preach on that, how that disobedience and sin clabbers the heavens, and it hinders the people from getting through those clabbered, brassed over heavens. Jesus, when he came, he said, I've come to do thy will, O Lord. And he said, you'll see, he told Nathaniel, he said, you'll see heaven open over me, and angels will be going up on my behalf and coming down on my behalf, ascending and descending over me. When I saw that in the scriptures, I knew I had a book, and I wrote the book about it. And I began preaching on open heavens. And what God did, basically, in just a short period of time, when he sent revival in 95, Pensacola no longer was known as abortion capital of the world. It became known as a revival capital of the world. So somebody give God praise.
So it just shows you how God begins to change the atmosphere. And that's one of the things that he told us when he established VFNtv and the daily radio program. He showed us specifically as we continue to speak in the air, begin to speak out what God is telling us to speak out, that the atmosphere changes. And we're seeing that take place. We've seen newscasters that have been in that region in the Gulf Coast, what we call the glory zone that we've been speaking into, that they begin to hear the Lord. After 17 years of broadcasting the news every day, And he said the Lord just called him into ministry. He's leaving. He's like, I got tired of speaking empty words, and he's gone into the ministry. Since then, we had other people that are saying how much hope that they've gotten. Why? Because as we begin to do what God says and speak out the words into the atmosphere, it changes things. It just begins to changes things. You look at what took place, revival that took place in 1995. Now we're looking at it's already beginning to bubble up in the all the way to the Mississippi, where Young Yi Cho gave that word. Well, guess what? It's going to come right back through the Gulf Coast again, come through the Panhandle, and I really truly believe God has set us up for that very thing. Be sure to subscribe and press alert to get new notifications of new success secrets made available on VFNtv. You know, a lot of people want to abide with the Lord, but they just don't have a plan to do it. You can request that plan today at iabide.org. I'm your host, Greg Lancaster, and we're so glad that you've joined us. Don't forget you can join us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download our app and sign up for our newsletter, The Torch, at VFNtv.com. I've enjoyed our time together. God bless.